reported Friday. That's down 24% this week. But hospitalizations remain at peak levels.
You were just telling me a story about your experience with the Flagstaff Shelter Services, and I don't know about the other shelters.
Not just Flagstaff Shelters, fucking everybody in the community.
You're saying you sleep out on the street, you don't go to the shelter because there's
too many fucking gay-hated ass motherfuckers. I'm fucking gay, you know, and I don't give a fuck, you know, but they hate me for, they can see me, but I have a loud ass mouth, you know, and I love my mouth, you know.
What about treatment from the shelter staff? Is that okay?
Treatment? Fuck that. No, hell no, it's not okay. Okay, this guy is a fucking dick to me.
Who works at the shelter?
Yeah.
Which, are you talking about the shelter on Huntington?
Dick. Yeah, Huntington. He doesn't have no reason to treat me like shit because I asked him, what the fuck is the reason, you know? He couldn't give me one. Not one damn reason.
So this is winter now and you're being denied?
I know it's cold because I don't really stay there, you know? I stay on the street. I sleep on the streets, you know? I sleep in that behind the trash dump, wherever, you know? But one night I went over there and he's like, because I couldn't hear him from this ear because, you know, my ear don't really work on the side. And the guy that was checking my bags, I was like kind of talking to him and he wants to know my name and then, like, you know, I couldn't multitask, you know what I'm saying? So, and he got mad at me for that shit and it was cold as hell. It was fucking so damn cold, like I was freezing my fucking ass off. And it was fucking that this motherfucker kicked me the hell out.
Yeah, so this is my second test for the day. As I mentioned earlier, the other tests, they just relied on the at-home results. This one is a PCR test. It's gonna expect, we're gonna expect results 2 to 3 days. So stay safe, stay masked, social, physical distance, and keep that mutual aid going. We need it more than ever. Hey, Yate, welcome to another update. My partner, Princess, who prefers not to be in the posts for privacy, but just wanted to show their cheesy little face. On Saturday, we got our test results back from the NAU PCR tests, which were affirmative, which we were not surprised. And so I have a blood oximeter, which is a very small, simple device. It's relatively cheap and accessible now. I've been monitoring my blood oxy levels as instructed by the doctors, and they said that they're extremely low. Actually, there's a risk of something called hypoxia or hypoxemia, which is low oxygen in your red blood cells, which are necessary to feed oxygen to your vital organs in your brain. The issue is that you can be asymptomatic and be hypoxic, which is very dangerous. And so a lot of folks who go into hypoxic territory below 90% of oxygen in their blood, it's recommended that they go to the hospital immediately, regardless if they're showing any kind of symptoms. Like, it doesn't have to be about being hard of breathing, hard of breath, or severe problems with your respiratory system. With all the work that I've been doing with mutual aid, all the research that I've been doing with teams of folks, whether it's indigenousmutualaid.org and the networks there, or whether it's Kinthana Mutual Aid, we have intensive protocols, and we don't take anything lightly at all. And so everything that we've been doing has been to try to maintain a good weight to be preventative and to support those most vulnerable, supporting unsheltered relatives. Would I change anything? No. I still want to make sure people have the support they need, but I also recognize that I'm also in a position where if I get infected, and I knew this, it could be much worse for me. You know, we're completely isolated. We have everything that we need. We prepared for this kind of scenario. In the past, we have quarantine kits, we have stockpile in our pantry. Then we have, the mutual aid group, which has already provided just an immense amount of support on that level on an ongoing basis for so many, that I feel confident with that. And I feel like, in light of the failures of the general population here of people to take it seriously, because there's a extreme contrast from the residents here or the settler colonizers here in so-called Flagstaff and folks on the res. If you look at what's happening on the res, most people are taking it very seriously. Because of mandates are still in play, imposed by the tribal government, but also because people have lost so many relatives. I lost a lot of relatives. My partner has lost relatives. We have, so many members of our family that aren't here with us. So we take this seriously. I've been taking it seriously since the beginning, and that's why we've been doing the support and organizing on the level. So nothing about that changes. You contrast that to being here in occupied Flagstaff in Arizona, where people don't give a shit about others. This is why mutual aid is key and critical. The principle of mutual aid is not necessarily just an act or an action or an activist pastime. It's a principle for how we can live our lives in relation to each other. It's a principle of radical redistribution of resources and power especially in the context of colonial occupation, domination, and violence. It's a assertion of how the world has been before as Dene people say, as our relationality to all beings, not just human beings and Mother Earth. And when we understand mutual aid or mutuality in that way as a principle that guides our lives, then, we're not going to walk around carelessly and risk infecting people who might be vulnerable. We're going to take the precaution that we need. We're going to make educated decisions based upon what the threats are to ensure that people are safe, especially those most vulnerable. That's why, it's hard for me to think badly about if my pathway for exposure was supporting unsheltered relatives, and why I say I wouldn't change anything about what I've done, what I'm doing, because this system, this capitalist system, this colonial system has completely neglected, has sacrificed, has deemed these folks disposable. This is what we're facing. But that's not good when we have vulnerable people who are being sacrificed on the altar of so-called progress at the nexus of capitalism and colonialism, this compounded crisis of pandemics, the political and the natural. And this conflict is going to continue as long as we choose to desecrate, exploit, control nature and each other and other beings. These violations have to stop, really, by any means. And this is what we have to do to confront that if we want a better world, a better way of being for existence, for health and harmony.